Hi, and thanks for tuning in to The Network Effect. Everybody knows the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know. And that's because the right network is a truly powerful tool that can help you get from A to B. Whether you're a large corporate entity working on multinational projects or a fast-growing startup looking to explore expanding into new markets for the first time, tapping into the support of the others can be the difference between success and heading down a path of costly, time-consuming mistakes. We've built a business around the principle of the network effect, where each new member increases the value of the network for all the members. And we've been able to use that network to help our clients to scale to countries all over the world. And we'd like you to now be part of that network. So each week we're going to bring you the opportunity to connect with entrepreneurs, investors, and professionals from around the world who will share their experience and expertise in scaling businesses into new countries, so you can build your network, identify the opportunities, and tackle the challenges involved in going global. If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Hey, welcome to episode 4 of The Network Effect. Zain, Asma, thanks so much for joining me again for another episode.
Good to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, and thank you all for joining as well. We've got another jam-packed episode for everybody today, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. I just wanted to kick off today with the usual bit of housekeeping and say, everybody please feel free to jump in the chat and say hello. We're all here to connect with new people and to identify opportunity. And I just wanted to also pass a question to the audience as well. So in the chat, when you're saying hello and telling us a little bit about where you're from, I just want to know who's ready for in-person events. In the UK here, we've just had our Freedom Day. We've just been let off most of the restrictions.
It's gone crazy.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of nightclubbing and stuff going on. I don't think from this panel. I don't know where Asma was the other night, but we've hopefully a bit more open up now, and we're really personally looking forward to our first in-person event on the 29th of July in London in Canary Wharf. If you're in the area, hit us up. There's still some spaces. But yeah, we can't wait for the opportunity to get back to that. Obviously, digital is an amazing way to collaborate locally. So let us know if you're ready for in-person events, if you've already got any planned. We'd love to hear about what's going on with the wide audience we've got. I just wanted to also quickly say thank you to everyone who voted last week on the Great Country Debate. If you haven't seen it, check it out, the last episode. It's on YouTube, it's in all of the podcasting platforms, and we really enjoy doing those. We've got another one coming up later in today's episode. Last week I got in trouble for speaking a bit too long in my section, so stay tuned to see if I can keep it in time. But Zain, what are we talking about in this week's Great Country Debate?
So today I think we've gone with the theme of Africa. So Asma's going to be doing an interview, which I'm sure she'll introduce shortly. So Africa is kind of known to be two of the best countries to go to in Africa. People tend to think of South Africa or Nigeria. So we thought, let's explore other opportunities. Multinationals typically are in those two countries, but what can other companies do? What are the opportunities? So today, Ben's going to be speaking on behalf of Mauritius. Seraj is going to be advocating for Kenya, which might be a little bit of an obvious choice. And We'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. And I'm going to be speaking on behalf of Rwanda.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, we'd love for you to give us your votes at the end. Tell us who did the best country pitch for the benefits and the cons of expanding to each of them. But I guess without further ado, we're going to jump over to the interview. Asma, what are we looking to sort of cover off today?
Yeah, no, great. So today I'm interviewing another exceptional person who I admire very much. We're going to talk about his venture in South Africa, having moved from the US. And we're going to talk about why Africa as a nation in terms of entrepreneurs expanding and going global into the region, as well as many other things. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to our guest today.
Fantastic. I think we'll do it. So yeah, I guess let's welcome Josh.
Great, thank you very much for joining me. And as always, every week we bring you some amazing guests from around the world, and truly global guests actually. And it actually, I'm in shock every week at the quality and high level value of the guests that we bring on week into this show. And this is the fun part, right? I've had these people in my network for a number of years, from different parts of the world in different regions, and I've had them there, but actually this show has given me the opportunity to explore and to get to know them better as people, as to their interest, as to why they're doing what they're doing, and really creating a journey of inspiration for other people to learn from. So today, I am really excited to introduce Josh.we, who is an absolutely exceptional talent, as I've just said a short while ago. And he's somebody who's an influencer, who's a leader, he's built companies himself, he's invested, he's supported companies, and he is now working, he started an accelerator in South Africa itself, and we're going to ask him lots of questions about that. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Josh.we onto the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Welcome, Josh, and so pleased to have you here as well. And thank you. I know you're a very, very busy person, and it's, I say to everybody every week, it's just so great to have people of such high quality on the show to be able to give us their time and to share their experiences with the audience. So thank you.
Yeah, no, very happy to be here. And I think for any entrepreneur, you're always trying to get back to the ecosystem. It's really, really important to be able to give and share insights and really help grow this whole process and whole ecosystem. So happy to be here today.
Thank you. And so Josh, I'm going to kick off by really asking you where it all started, because you're relatively young yourself, right? You've pretty much done it all already. And to me, I feel like you're only just getting started. So you've had a tremendous career. You started out in New York, working in capital markets. You've invested in lots of different companies. So tell us how it all started back in the US and how you ended up going to South Africa.
Man. Yeah, it's a tough one, but it always seems to make sense when you look backwards, but It didn't really make a ton of sense looking forwards. I did start my career in banking, so I worked in debt capital markets in San Francisco and New York for 11 years, and loved that experience, loved working in high finance, loved working in that really both strategic as well as really high-paced and high action environment. And loved working in the area that I did. I'm a behavioral economist by trade, and so I really love the interplay of numbers and people, and that is what a capital market is, really, and especially once you start getting into more bespoke trading of more, bespoke securities, you do start to have this interplay of numbers and people, and really in the free market, that's really interesting. I had my first entrepreneurial experience in 2008. And I think this is really important for people out there listening today as well. And if you have that entrepreneurial mindset, then in the midst of crisis, whether that's a housing bubble or a global financial crisis or COVID or whatever else, as entrepreneurs, we have to find opportunity. There are massive dislocations in the markets, massive dislocations and disruptions all across the globe. So we have to say, where does the opportunity lie when those things happen? And so my first startup, which actually was my most successful financial startup, was in 2008. Ended up buying a broker-dealer license with a couple of people from Bear Stearns who found themselves unemployed overnight. And we really timed that one well. We really got it right. And that startup did very, very well. Grew from 5 people to 20, was pretty lucrative, and really served a need in the market. I ended up going back to banking. My second startup was terrible. So my first one was really good. My second one was terrible. I didn't really think it through. I didn't really give it its the full brunt of what it really needed. I didn't really understand what I was building. So in 2013, I looked up and said, hey, I'm ready to leave banking. I think I built some skills. I think I built my own personal knowledge, and I want to go use this experience to do more. And I'd spent a lot of time in emerging markets. I think there is really an interesting both for-profit as well as social motivation here. I think there's a lot of problems in emerging markets that can be solved with the private sector. And I think that's what has to happen. And you can do that in a for-profit way, but also deliver a really meaningful social good and really solve these wicked problems with capitalism. That's always been my premise. And so in 2013, I went back to business school. I was able to go to Stanford, which really is an incubator / university, or university / incubator. I'm not sure even which one to put first there. And really have a go at figuring out, is there a scientific method behind entrepreneurism? At that point, I was 1 for 2. How do I go 3 for 4, or even 5 for 5, if you will? And I really learned that there is a method to this madness. There is a method to building companies. It's not what you learn in MBA. It's not what you learn at a corporate. It is very different. And there are a number of different techniques out there in the world, but specifically those techniques haven't really been, in my personal opinion, fully developed, and also have not been applied to Africa in the context here. So then I spent the last 5 years helping build off-grid solar companies all across Africa. So we were able to build 2 different companies there. By the time we were done with that, we had operations in 10 different markets, 800,000 customers, 2,000 employees, and one of those companies was acquired. So that was really proving the model that you can deliver a social good to an off-grid, relatively low income, unbanked customer in a profitable, scalable, really private sector way. I found myself in South Africa a couple of years ago as an entrepreneur without an idea and without a team, and ended up here at LaunchLab. And that's been a really incredible journey, with the premise being we need lots of companies in Africa really attacking these private sector, these public sector difficulties with really interesting, innovative ideas. And my belief is you have to have this tied to a great university. It's the way startup ecosystems work all across the world. Stellenbosch University, UCT, what we have here in the Western Cape is really unparalleled across the continent. And the big premise now is, how do we transform seemingly impossible into world shaping from the university, using these resources for Africa, by Africa, in Africa. So even though I'm not from Africa, I've spent enough time here, at least 6 or 7 years of blood, sweat, and tears trying to figure it out, and really taking a model from Silicon Valley, from the global north, and really iterating it for the African context, which is very, very different. I will say is very, very different. You only learn that through experience. So yeah, very happy to be here today, and also to share any of those lessons, really open sourcing all this material so we all can move forward together faster, is what it comes down to, which is really the network effect, as you guys mentioned.
No, absolutely. And it's really interesting. I mean, you've obviously given us a lot of information in that answer. And I guess, climate change, sustainability as a topic is an interesting one for me, because so many people are trying to tackle it in so many different ways. It's an important one. And I think the more entrepreneurs that we have, or the more solutions and the more tech that's been developed and built to tackle this problem, the better. But I think it does carry with it a huge amount of challenges in itself, in terms of, when startups come in, the right opportunity or the right level. I think Africa is a big opportunity in itself, because there's a huge amount of I guess, projects that you could be working on, and there's a huge learning in the region itself. But across the world, you see lots of different companies trying to solve this problem. So, you said that LaunchLab in itself is trying to, is seemingly trying to find, or I'm going to quote actually on your website what it says, that it focuses on helping the seemingly impossible to world shaping. Right, so I wanted to understand that a little bit better, because the other thing that you're saying is that you're tackling high-impact companies, tackling the world's toughest challenges in agri, climate, and health, with a heavy dose of engineering and data science. Now that just sounds mind-boggling to me. So it would be great to get a little bit of an insight into what does that actually mean for a layman?
Yeah. And that's great. That is our mission. So our mission is to transform seemingly impossible into world shaping. And we are a very mission-driven organization. And if I double click on that, what does it really mean? One is that we are really living in that 0 to 1 of the entrepreneurial journey. So we very much believe that there is a path. Entrepreneurism does follow a path. There's a lot of pattern recognition. And the more you do this, I've been part of 7 startups in my career, the more you start to see that path. And we want other people to realize that there is a path, because as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you don't think there's a path. It's scary, it's dark, you have no idea where you're going. You don't know what 0 looks like, you don't know what 1 looks like, but we're telling you there is a path. We're starting to put quantitative assessments behind that. We have different programs that meet the needs of different stages along that path. But if I look at that, seemingly impossible, a lot of the things that we get from the university are incredible, but at the surface level, they're super early stage. There's tons of intellectual property, tons of really interesting things, but they're really hard to commercialize. How do we get that into the world? How do we make that something that could live in the public sphere? If we are tackling the really hard problem of climate change, a lot of even that itself seems seemingly impossible. How do we take these ideas, work with them, and as you said, with a heavy dose of engineering, data science, and we really are the business side of the house, and get them from that 0, which is the idea, all the way to what we call product market fit, which is the 1. So really from idea to product market fit. And we believe that we can help entrepreneurs walk that journey. We also don't believe that journey takes 3 months. So a lot of the incubation and acceleration across the world are primarily standardized programs that go on for a few months, and then the companies come in, they go out, and they do their thing. We believe it takes a lot longer. We believe it takes a lot more bespoke help. It takes a lot more venture building. And it really is, it could be a 1, 2, 3 year process. And we think of ourselves and want to be co-founders along with our entrepreneurs so that we are rolling up our sleeves. We are not only telling people how to do it, but we're doing it with them. And the end goal is to help people get from idea to product market fit. And then ideally at product market fit, you can hire the CFO, you can hire the Chief Business Development Officer. But in the meantime, we play that role. And we play that role for primarily technical co-founders or technical founders who really need that side of the house and need to figure out how to get something into the world so that it can be world shaping. I'll say lastly, we do work with really every type of company. We have companies that are doing precision agriculture, biotech, last mile logistics, off-grid solar, but we do want to focus our efforts a bit more on a couple of the key themes that I mentioned earlier. One is where the public sector is breaking or is deficient and the private sector is stepping in. So that could be energy, off-grid solar, infrastructure, education. There's a lot of really interesting things in that sector. We're also really looking at what can be scalable and really make a huge difference in Africa, which really is, in our mind, more of the climate side. So this could be precision agriculture, a lot of really interesting things going on there. And then on the health side, we're working on biotech and using big data for health solutions across Africa. So we aren't as focused on a lot of the things that get funded and also are really at the top of mind in Africa. So 80% of the venture capital funding in Africa goes to fintech in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. That's very well suited, and that makes a lot of sense. But we want to focus on things that are being a little bit less loved. So less loved sectors and also a less loved part of the journey. It's really hard to go from 0 to 1. There's a lot of accelerators, there's not a lot of incubators, there's a lot of Series A investors, there's not a lot of seed investors. So we feel like we can be additive in that part of the journey. And really going back full circle and transforming something that is really hard into something that can be viable in the global sphere.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And so I guess Africa in itself is a big market and you're incubating companies that are coming out of Africa itself. But let's say there was a company that was, for example, the US or Europe. I mean, are those companies ripe for a LaunchLab journey? I mean, are there opportunities for them? Or is this very much a local market?
Yeah, it's a good question. We don't really, I mean, for companies that want to scale into Africa, I think there really does need to be a real customer discovery exercise to figure out how do you do that. To be candid, we're not as focused on that. I mean, we are always interested in people who want to iterate a business model for Africa. One of my learnings and my key hypotheses is that a lot of the things that we're building in Africa need to be more low tech and need to really think about business model innovation. It's one of the big differences between the global north and the global south. In the global north, you can build a business that's incredibly specialized. You can play a very small part of the value chain. So you can build enterprise software for a specific customer, for a specific thing, and make that a big business. And also your way to get that to the customer, to acquire a customer, is a lot easier. So you can play a very specific specialized role. Your access to market, your access to customers can be very efficient and very easy. In Africa, it doesn't really work that way in a lot of sectors. You may have to build the entire value chain. You may have to build the product and the software and the sales and the distribution and the financing and the service, and getting it to a customer and finding that customer and speaking to that customer and building brand with them can take a lot of time and effort. So I think being able to take models from other sectors or other geographies, bring them to Africa is really interesting, but vice versa as well. How do we think about South Africa or other countries across Africa as a bit of a founding or seeding ground, and then start to iterate the model for other African countries? So we can work on both. I do think that African solutions are different. Like, you're talking to someone who did come from Silicon Valley, who came from New York, took some of that tech and took some of those learnings and applied it to Africa. And what I've learned is that in order to really do it, you really do need to be on the ground here. You really do need to see, you need to be in the field. And we talk a lot in our programs about customer discovery and really being in the field, meeting your customer where they are, understanding their needs, being very human-centered. And when you do that across the continent, you realize it is very, very different than Europe and the States. So very open to that, but also very much focused on building in Africa for Africa, and as I said, by Africa as well.
Okay, and so what is the typical journey of a cohort in your LaunchLab look like? So, for example, you've seeded them, you've supported them, but when they get to scale, what happens after that? I mean, do they go global typically? What happens to these companies? Just from experience.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there really are two paths. One, if I look at some of our precision agriculture companies, some of them have come from the university. They're trying to figure out, okay, I built this thing, or I think I understand this customer problem. How do I make my first couple of sales? So we'll work with them through that process. There then is this maturation of saying, okay, I've made a couple of sales. Now, how do I start to grow my business? And we use the definition of a startup as a temporary organization searching for a scalable and repeatable business model. So we are really helping that company search, get your first couple of sales, start to figure out what product your customers may care about, really understand the customer problem you're looking to solve. And the next big step is okay, well, you made a couple of sales. Are you now a consulting business, or is there a product somewhere in what you're doing? And a product is something that really is scalable and repeatable. So I think of consulting as bespoke, and you get paid for your human hours. You start to get into a scalable startup when you can build a product that users can use without you in the room. And that's what we're always trying to figure out is, okay, is something in here scalable? For some of those companies in the precision agriculture space, the African market is so big. We're not really looking to go to Europe. I mean, competing in precision agriculture with the Netherlands or the UK or something, I don't think makes a ton of sense. Those markets are already very good at that, and they're already pretty efficient in what they do. But using big data, satellites, drones, AI and ML for crop picking, autonomous vehicles for berries, things like that, in an African context are super interesting. And if we think about the resources we have in South Africa versus Kenya or versus even Nigeria or Eswatini or whatever it may be, it's very interesting to say, how do we build it here and then export it across Africa? In another case, and again, like in that circumstance, I don't know if scaling to the US or Europe makes a ton of sense, but that's something we can think about. We do work with a couple of plant-based or consumer packaged good companies. I think those are super interesting to think about international scale. So if you are producing locally, if you're doing something really unique, we know that a lot of this can be storytelling, it can be branding. So how do we think about getting a local African rooibos tea or a plant-based, whatever it may be, from just a South African market into a shelf in Europe or into a shelf in the United States, which obviously from an FX and a revenue perspective could be really, really interesting and open up a bigger market. So in the last case, I would say for biotech, same concept. We have a couple companies we're working with now, incredible intellectual property from the university, trying to figure out who is the customer for that IP and who is the customer for that product. And for some of this stuff, it could be Pan-African, it could be Global South, and for some of it could be something that lives in the Global North as well. So I do think it's more product specific and more sector specific than it can be more general, and it really just depends on the overall product in the market. But for us, we're always thinking of why Africa?
And I think Africa, I see it a little bit like the South American region, right? Because a lot of the companies there, they expand to countries within that, I guess, in South, whether it's Uruguay, Peru, or Brazil, or Mexico, they tend to expand in those regions before they expand internationally. And so, I think Africa is probably similar to that. Am I right?
I think so. I mean, they're in Africa's 52 countries and massive, right? And I think that we are seeing some companies that are saying, okay, well, actually Brazil looks closer to a similar market to South Africa than, say, Zimbabwe does. And so the next market is going to be South Africa, Brazil, Mexico. I think that's very, very interesting. You're seeing a lot of that kind of scale. On the other side, the companies I was helping build in clean energy, we had operations in Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Benin, Zambia. Like there was a rhyme and reason about those markets in specific to that sector and off-grid solar. It didn't make as much sense to go to India. It didn't make as much sense to go to Mexico. So again, I do think it's product specific, but there are, depending on the product, certain markets that start to look similar, start to rhyme a bit more. And those do separate in a pretty big way when you start looking at the 52 countries across Africa. Some of that's based on per capita GDP, some of it's based on population density, things like that.
And so which companies are you most excited about, Josh? I mean, are there any that you think are really going to go global?
Yeah, I love precision agriculture. So again, fintech is the thing that gets the most funding, gets the most press, and is the most scalable. Because to be clear, fintech in Africa is the closest thing to be able to create an app on your phone to generally a pretty wealthy consumer, or the top 1 or 2% of consumers in Africa, and then have it become scalable. And this is also why I love capital markets, because money flows to where it has the highest potential for return. If you look even at Silicon Valley, it's why enterprise software or SaaS gets funded a lot, right? I mean, that has the highest potential for ROI. In Africa so far, it's fintech. If I say, hey, fintech is well subscribed, I'm not going to add a lot of value there, that's not also my expertise, what is the next thing on that spectrum that could be scalable, but can also be highly impactful? And that's where I live, is trying to figure out that thing. Precision agriculture is incredibly cool. As I get deeper and deeper into these companies, I also am so amazed by this idea that most of the world is a 1 hectare farmer, or most of the world is a small commercial farm. And it really still is this construct of, I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in, there's a big black box in the middle, and there's some output. And really the whole farming system right now is still pretty much a black box. You'd be amazed when you talk to farmers about what they think they're going to get in terms of productivity and efficiency, what they think they're going to get in versus get out, and how different that is. How much people don't understand their labor costs, how much they don't understand what type of soil they should use. So if I use it, for instance, we're working with a couple companies right now. One is very focused on really understanding and tracking labor costs. That's the biggest cost for most farms. How do we start to understand how productive the labor force is, how to be more productive, how to use that labor force in different ways based on different parts of the season? We have another company we're working with that has built really interesting ways to understand the soil composition. They realized that wasn't enough, so they started using satellites and aerial drones to understand from the top down. Realized that wasn't enough, and you have to go on the ground and start doing AI and ML to understand your crop yields. And when you start pulling those 3 data points together, you start to become way more efficient, way more productive, and increase the margins of a farm. And to me, those are all relatively scalable things because they are tech focused, they are tech enabled, and they are similar to fintech. But in the end, what is the output? The output is hopefully Africa becomes way more productive in its farming, increasing jobs, increasing efficiency, increasing overall revenue and government taxes. And that's what we're backing into, right? How do we increase revenue, increase taxes, increase jobs, and overall, especially in a really critical sector like precision agriculture, be way smarter in how we're doing this thing. And again, very exportable to other parts of the world as well.
So Josh, the other thing that I have heard is Stellenbosch as a region or an area in South Africa is raved to be the next Silicon Valley. I mean, how true is that? Is that right? I mean, does it have that competitive edge? I mean, is it the next Silicon Valley?
I mean, I live here, so I've been able to live and work in New York, San Francisco, London, Paris, Amsterdam. I lived in Australia for a little while. I've been in Kenya, Nigeria. So I've lived in a lot of places. And the reason that we ended up in South Africa is because we do think my wife and I, who also is in the sector as well, believe that it has all the elements necessary to be, and I don't want to call it the Silicon Valley for Africa because it's always different. It's a different thing, but to be the entrepreneurial hub and what we call the go-to destination for globally conscious startup activity. That's what we want the Western Cape to be. I think the most important thing it has are 2 of the best universities on the continent. So these things all start around great universities. There's a ton of intellectual property, a ton of smart people, and perhaps most importantly, what I call an irrational optimism. I love universities because everyone thinks they can change the world, right? And that's what Silicon Valley is. I mean, the first and foremost thing there was this idea that you had to take risks and you had to give it a go. I went to Silicon Valley as a banker and people wouldn't even have a beer with me. They were like, yo, loser, you have to go and do a startup. And so I did, and it was really, and what that means is there's a culture. There's a culture of risk taking, there's a culture of giving back, and there's a culture of really trying to build the big thing. I do think the Western Cape, in terms of having great universities, in terms of the funding landscape, so Stellenbosch does have the highest concentration of dollar millionaires anywhere in Africa. We have this great university, we have great entrepreneurs, we have big corporates, we have smart people, and we also have resources that just aren't really there on the rest of the continent. So I believe the Western Cape can be, as we said, this go-to destination. If you want to build the hard thing, we want you to say, I have to go to the Western Cape. So if you're going to build enterprise software, you should probably go to San Francisco. If you're going to build fintech for the global north, London is the highest probability for success. We think that Stellenbosch and the Western Cape should be the gateway to Africa for building the hard thing in climate, agri, and health. And that's the big vision. That's where we want to get to. The pieces are there. We're still early. I'm going to be clear. It's still very early in a very nascent sector. But I think by really having the incubators, having the accelerators, and then doing what we're doing today, sharing our learnings and really hoping to find partners to work together, we can get this thing to where it needs to be faster than if we did it alone.
Yeah, no, sounds good. And I guess there's two questions that follow on from that. So with your own vision and your own journey of where you're going with the LaunchLab particularly, I mean, are there plans to expand into other African regions?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we're starting a program today with Startup Namibia. So we are helping build or at least administer some programs in Windhoek. We have a partnership with the University of Botswana. We're doing some design thinking workshops there. I'll be in Gaborone in September, looking to scale that in a bigger way. My hypothesis, incubation is hard. There's not a lot of funding out there to actually do the hard work. People want to invest in the company. They don't want to invest in the incubator. The incubator model is one where you are providing very valuable services to customers that generally don't have any money. It's how startups work. And you usually get paid in equity. Well, equity takes a long time to turn into dollars. So what I believe is that you have to have economies of scale in the model. Not everyone should be raising the funds. Not everyone should be building their own programs. Not everyone should be taking, I mean, LaunchLab is 7 years old and we've spent over 30 million Rand trying to figure this thing out. Why should everyone start at zero, right? Mm-hmm. So start where we are. Let us help you build the programs. Let us help you build the pipeline. Mm-hmm. Learn from what we've done and let us learn from you as well. And then the premise is make it uniquely situated to your own geography. So for instance, we are looking to build incubators in Rwanda, as I said, in Namibia, in Botswana, across Southern Africa, so that we can get people to really good very fast and make it uniquely local to that context. But learn from what we've done, let us learn from you, and really have some economies of scale in the model. Otherwise, I just don't think there's going to be 10 or 15 or 20 sustainable incubators across the continent. The model just doesn't really work that way.
Yeah. And so the second question I have following on from that is incubators, accelerators, all of these organizations do rely on partnerships. And so how effective are partnerships to you, and what are the most valuable partnerships that you see?
Yeah, I mean, it is, one of our values is aim for 49%, and that is actually a nod to partnerships. It means that we're willing to give our partner 51%. We need to be smart enough not to give them 100%, but we also need to be strategic and look for these long-term partnerships, make them win-win, and give people the win. That's fine. Like, we just want to find this thing that's going to work in the long term. What we're finding are who are the best partners. And so for us, the university has been a great partner. So they are helping us get intellectual property into the world, helping us find great technical people. We have a great partnership with the business school at the university, really working to help bridge the gap, because one of the things missing in our ecosystem is risk-taking. So if you're in Silicon Valley, if you take a risk, odds are you can sleep on the sofa, you can fund yourself, your parents will give you some money for a little while. Here, we're not that way, right? So the ability to take risk is mitigated, and also the cultural value of taking risk is not applauded the same way it is in other parts of the world. So how do we build partnerships that allow people to take risk in a mitigated way? So we have a number of people from the business school, a number of mentors from all over the world who get to work with our startups, get to get a feel for it. They get to add value, but they also get to feel what it feels like to work at a startup, and that's a really, really good thing. So I do consider some of our biggest partners to be our mentors, to be our experts, to be the university and some of our technical experts who come in and add a lot of value. We're finding that development finance, so groups like GIZ and USAID and others who do want to do good things in Africa, but there aren't enough partners to implement the projects that they have. Those have been great partners. We are starting to work with more what I would call medium-sized corporates. The big corporates are big and they take a long time and they're very slow moving. But we did just sign and are building now a plant-based food incubator with a great company called Infinite Foods. Infinite Foods is the largest plant-based wholesaler in Africa, and they want to grow more local companies. So we're working with them now to help grow local plant-based companies so that Infinite Foods could sell more of their products across Africa. That's a great partnership. So I do think partnering with what I call mission-aligned partners, other partners who want to grow the ecosystem, who want to grow early-stage companies, who want to grow them, again, in sectors that we think matter, are critical for success. I mean, with that said, I do think that we can't rely only on partnerships. Like, we do have to do the hard work and build a sustainable model ourselves, and then partnerships are what really supercharge the model. And I do feel like at LaunchLab, we are sustainable ourselves. We've built our own programs. We feel like we have a good foundation that we can now then bring to partners and really start to make that thing catalytic.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Josh. That's been fascinating and interesting learning about all of this. And I think there's probably lots more questions I have to ask you, but we've run out of time. But just before we go, just very quickly, 30 seconds, what's next for Josh himself personally? I mean, are you staying in Africa? Are you growing this out internationally within that region? What's next for you?
Yeah. The big vision is I want to create the global South's leading entrepreneurial platform. So it's not just an incubator. There's way more that we need. There's way more that needs to be done. So we are doing data science boot camps. We are connecting people to internships at tech firms. We're building other incubators. We're doing SME programs. We're going to start rolling out a number of programs using design thinking for everyone. So how do you build the entrepreneurial mindset? So we're going to start a program called Design Your Life, which really looks at building entrepreneurial mindset within young people. So the big vision is to build LaunchLab as a great startup, right? To make sure that we have a sustainable model, to make sure we really are creating a model that adds lots of value across a number of key sectors. And then ideally, we'll raise our funding as well and hopefully scale this model across the global South. So if I look up in a couple of years, I would love to see a LaunchLab in Nairobi and Lagos, but also in Santiago and Mexico City, because I do think a lot of the opportunities as well as problems in the global South rhyme. And we do want to make sure, again, that our expertise, our experience, we can spread that and bring in local people to make it very contextual. But that is the big vision, is to have this thing be across the global South and really get these lessons in people's hands so they can make them their own and really start from a strong foundation. And as I say, make creative mistakes, make new mistakes, and keep building something that's even better than what we could do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone's enjoyed listening to all of this. And there will be questions. And if people want to get in touch, please let us know. We can pass you details for Josh. He's on LinkedIn anyway, so please connect with him. But thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate it. And speak again soon. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
And we're back. Hello, Seraj, welcome.
Hey guys, good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks.
Excellent. I know. Well done to Asma there on that interview. I think another great one smashed out the park. I was just thinking in my head that Josh summed up really well that there's a lot. Everything's pretty much been done in the world, right? There's that old saying of you can't write an original song because all the chords have been written. And I think at some point, most people have taken some level of the journey people looking at. So I really appreciated his comment that there's no point people starting at zero. Other people have sort of done the work, and how can you do that? So I think that really builds into our ethos of building this network is don't go try and find 100 partners around the world yourself. We're happy to be a part of that process and to join us, and that's where the network effect kicks in. So I like that little connection of the interview.
Yeah, I think that fit in very nicely. Sorry, go on, sorry.
Yeah, just again, I think there's the opportunities also exist. So there's a lot that hasn't really been done within South Africa, and there's a lot, or not South Africa only, within Africa. And I think it's taking some of the learnings, but that's not where it ends. And I think what's great about what Josh's vision is he wants to take the learnings within Africa and take it out there. I think there's actually a lot that Africa can teach the rest of the world. And I think we need just more of these connections, more of this network effect where you can see that. And actually, and just as a precursor to our discussion later, I think he mentioned Nairobi and Kenya many times. Just saying.
Well, we can ignore that.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that he said, I think, kind of follows on nicely from what you've just said, is you can learn a lot from the people who are actually doing work in a region. So what I found interesting was when Josh said that, stereotypically in the past, people would have thought a lot of social change comes from the public sector, but the work that he did in Africa was through the private sector. And now with LaunchLab helping companies go to have a social impact, you can actually achieve a lot of good whilst making a profit at the same time. So you can have the best of both rather than the traditional kind of mindsets.
Yeah, it was an amazing interview. So really good to have Josh on, and thank you, Josh, for joining us. I guess that feeds in nicely, and I don't know if we'll always be able to pull this off with our guests connecting to the great country debate, but we are going to jump into a section where the three of us, Zain, Seraj, and myself, each pick a country in a specific area and debate which is the best country to expand into. We're going to look at the pros and the cons, hopefully keep it to 90 seconds, that talking to myself there for that one. But I guess, Seraj, as the reigning champion, I think given the Olympics are starting, I don't know if we're going to get gold medals involved yet, but as the winner of last week's debate, do you want to kick things off?
I can. I just want to tell everyone that we drew this out of a hat, right? We didn't. We drew which country out of us. Just preempting when I win again. I don't want people to say, "Oh, he always gets to choose the country."
No, it's because you're bright.
Anyway.
You know.
Yeah.
You've got the tropical island this time. Let's see what I can do.
What country are you covering off? What country are you covering off, Seraj?
Kenya. I've got Kenya.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so here goes my pitch. So firstly, what the eighth wonder of the world is especially natural wonder of the world, is the great migration, the wildebeest migration of the Masai Mara. And since we're all about migrating and immigrating, I thought it's quite fitting that that's the starting point. But in all seriousness, Kenya is a great place to be. If you can see some of the stats behind you, it's a very big country. It's the third largest economy behind the two that we expected, which is South Africa and Nigeria. It's got a not brand new, but it's got a new constitution out in 2010. Between 2015 and 2019, it's one of the fastest growing GDPs or economies in Africa at 5.7%. Let's just remember Barack Obama kind of officially or unofficially is, from Kenya. The industries that are really great is agriculture, forestry, tourism, as expected. There's big five safaris that you can do. There's beaches. If we talk, the biggest exports, the top two biggest export countries for Kenya is China and India, which are two massive markets, and their location on the east is perfect for that. There's 90% literacy rate, which is the highest in the region, good quality education, modern shopping malls and everything else. And then just a few things. There's a huge growing pool of talent because Google, Cisco, Nokia, Siemens all have offices there. And then my final one, here comes the clincher. The UN could have put their offices anywhere in Africa, and they put it in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much. Drop the mic.
Fair enough. It's a big move there. So I think I'll go next, and I've got Mauritius to cover off. Which unfortunately is going to beat you out today, Seraj. And just wait for the end, for the punchline. I took a little cue there. All right, I think I can beat Seraj on this one. Right? So the government of Mauritius has been working very successfully for the last 30 years to make Mauritius probably the best country to set up a business in Africa and one of the top contenders globally. So it's a very unique destination for investment. Investors can benefit from no capital gains tax, no withholding tax, no capital duty on issued capital, confidentiality on the company formation, exchange of liberalization, and free repatriation of profit and capital. The tax benefits also go beyond investors to businesses as well. So there's different terms for different sectors, but if you're developing IP in the country, you can apply for an 8-year exemption from corporate tax. If you're an e-commerce brand or peer-to-peer lending, they have a 5-year exemption. The list goes on, but that was just to give you sort of an example. When it comes to actually setting up in Mauritius, an investor can be set up there in 3 days, as we've got the time set up there. If you're setting up a full company entity, it'd probably take you around 2 weeks, but I would just warn there is a lot of documents, so I would suggest getting help. But the benefits of setting up a business there, 100% foreign ownership, no capital required, and there's no need to really travel to Mauritius. You can get it all set up online. I just wanted to also touch on the workforce, similar to Seraj's point. Mauritius has been establishing itself as the knowledge hub for Africa. There are 35 UK universities and a number of other awarding bodies with international qualifications. So you can get your qualifications in Mauritius and be recognized in the UK, whether that's in accounting or architecture, or a full suite. So they've got a very high workforce there, very educated and qualified as well. And obviously Mauritius is then a perfect way to enter the African market. I'll give you one negative and then I'll give you my clincher. So if you are setting up in Mauritius, while the tax is very low, it does take a lot of time to properly apply for the tax. So I do recommend getting help. You have to submit your tax to a number of different government bodies. So just be aware of that while the tax is low. And my clincher is the weather. Winter in Mauritius, the lowest it gets is 20 degrees. Summer in Mauritius, the highest it gets is 30. So you're permanently living between 20 and 30 degrees. So why not go set up your business there? It'll be easy, high workforce, and what a life to live. The end.
Well played, son.
Thank you.
All right, we've had two great pitches there. Let's see how I can do. Before I do start though, Seraj has made a comment about being surprised about Mauritius's IP incentives. So it's not part of my speech and it's a little bit of cheating, but just to let you know, Rwanda has one of the best IP systems in Africa.
Okay.
Anyway, should we get going with Rwanda? So, Rwanda is ideal for any business looking to launch in Africa. It's got one of the lowest barriers to entry out of any of the countries in Africa. In fact, World Bank ranks it second in Africa for ease of doing business. So if we look at company setup, for example, it says 1 day, but you can actually do it in less than 6 hours. So you could put your application in the morning, have a few meetings, have your lunch, company's done, boom. Less than 6 hours, and it's free, all online. I mean, how can you beat that? There's no minimum investment amount to enter the country, and both newly formed small and medium-sized companies do not have to pay any tax on their trading license for 2 years. So super low cost. Rwanda also has an incredibly organized and efficient public sector, which is something which they're kind of adjectives not normally used for public sectors in some African countries. And the reason for this is because of a very young, ambitious, educated workforce. In fact, the majority of people in leadership positions are in their 30s, and 70% of the entire population are under the age of 30. They're all tech savvy, they love technology. So that means it's a great place for tech companies to launch, as well as the more traditional agriculture, energy, healthcare, infrastructure. So pretty much one more clincher for you guys. It also ranked 9th in the world for gender equality. So if you're looking for somewhere that's super easy to set up, super cost effective, and super safe, because also it's ranked 5th in the world as one of the safest places to walk at night. So super safe, super easy, super cheap, and equal for all. Rwanda.
There we go.
Wow. Nice one.
But before, I've got a little rebuttal there, but please, whoever you think had the best pitch today, which I think we've been pretty much on time, please now just jump in the comments and let us know which of those locations you think one way you would like to set up your business. I mean, one of the problems with Rwanda is you're going to have to constantly explain to people that no, you didn't say Wakanda, you said Rwanda. Going to be a common issue you have to deal with. So do you want that all the time? It's a great conversation.
It's a great way to build rapport.
That's it.
You know what I'm really impressed about, and it is that we could, we chose. We didn't take South Africa and Nigeria, and we still came up with 3 really compelling reasons to start in Africa. I think in general, because we do have an audience from all over the place, Switzerland or wherever it is. If we just the fact that we have countries in Africa that are focused on entrepreneurship and kind of startups and trying to get things going is fascinating and amazing. Rwanda, by the way, both yours and I'm not trying to just vote for you guys, but both those countries are doing such amazing things, and I don't mind which way it goes. So
that's all right. Well, so far, Linda has had your back there so far, Seraj, with Kenya. But I've got a couple more votes for Mauritius, and I think I might have won Alice over with the sunshine. So I think we might give it to me.
We'll give it to you.
All right.
I'm happy to give it to you, as long as our next conference that we have is in Mauritius as well. I'm good with that.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so Zain, challenge is on for you to come up and join us on the winning podium.
All I'm going to say is Sri Lanka last time, Mauritius this time. This is a business challenge, not a holiday challenge.
I know. I stole that from Seraj winning. I'm pretty sure last time Sri Lanka just won on the holiday. So we might have to implement a rule of no holiday talk. I think Linda's just said, Mauritius for vacation. So, all right, that might have been a cheeky card for me to play. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Keep an eye out on our LinkedIn. We'll announce the next countries for next week, and we'll hopefully continue to do this and to bring you some compelling countries to move into. I think, as Seraj said, that there's a lot of opportunity out there, and sometimes it's just about knowing it there. So we want to keep sharing pros, cons, definite sort of trends and things that are coming up with you as well. Subscribe on the YouTube channel and on the podcast as well, so if you miss an episode, you'll always be able to get it there. But obviously, we really appreciate that you're able to join us live on LinkedIn and be part of the conversation. So yeah, Zain, Seraj, Asma in the background, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll... Oh, sorry, yep.
Just if you can throw forward to next week. We've got an amazing guest next week. If you have those details, I think it would be good just to tell everyone.
Yeah, of course, perfect. So yeah, definitely join us next week. We have Ronan, the CEO of Verizon consumer brand from the US, joining us. So he's going to be able to come in and speak about the growth and scaling of Verizon. They're doing a lot of amazing stuff with 5G networks, as well as a lot of digital platforms. So definitely worth coming to join us next week for that interview with Asma, as well as obviously our section as well. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining. Keep an eye out for us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next week, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. UK time. We'll see you there. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.